For those of you who were here last week and got to sing our call and response song, those words were by Serena Partridge, and that was who we just heard. I hope you'll check her out. She's on Bandcamp. She's fabulous. From Adrienne Marie Brown. Dandelions don't know whether they are a weed or a brilliance, but each seed can create a field of dandelions. We are invited to be that prolific and to return fertility to the soil around us. Y'all, I am an enthusiastic gardener. I think some of you are as well, yes? Fellow gardeners in the house, I see some hands. So I am willing to dig up the front yard of my small city lot in St. Paul where I live, interrupting the expanses of grass squares that are the norms from block to block. Pollinator-friendly native plants and grasses, raised beds and containers for vegetables and herbs. I planted blueberry bushes this year. I have a serviceberry tree that's only this tall, but I'm hoping it'll get 15 feet in a few years. I have a mound of rhubarb, of course. All of these plants soaking up the warm south bright sun. In my backyard, underneath the quaking aspen, a mix of perennials, some small bushes, gray rocks, and a small but nice patch of grass for my 2 dogs. I move plants readily, rehome or compost what doesn't work within my little ecosystem. If you don't work, you're out of here. I thank the friendly bugs, and truthfully, I do curse those aphids and those Japanese beetles and all of those other pests. I know my fellow gardeners know what I'm talking about here. I only have room for a pretty small compost bin that I got for cheap from my county, along with a simple wire box to corral fall leaves. The bulk of my organic yard and food waste gets brought to one of the public compost sites that I'm really fortunate to have in my county. Composting is one of life's greatest renewal processes, and I love the science of its regeneration. The recipe is quite simple. Combine nitrogen-rich green materials with carbon-rich browns. Add some water and turn the pile for oxygen. A slew of helpful bacteria and fungi get to work breaking it all down into black gold. I mean, I know it's science and basic ecology, but I believe it's a bit of magic too. With the right balance of 3 parts brown to 1 part green, some water and air, these simple ingredients support a miracle, really. I know not everyone here or online is a gardener. You might not even have a houseplant, although I hear the thrift store, the thrift sale has some houseplants for sale. But I hope regardless that you can picture what I'm describing. This connection between decomposing and nourishment. 2 things that seem almost like opposites, but are actually necessary for the other. Rumi wrote, "The ground's generosity takes in our compost and grows beauty. Try to be more like the ground." To be like the ground is to have sources of sustenance and energy. It's to have worn out bits and debris, to have roots and grit. And let's be real frank here. To be like the ground is to have a little shit too. These days of August bounty lift up the generosity of the season. Bright sunshine and refreshing rains bolster our mood. Time outside at the lake, on a patio, at the ballpark, they invite joy and ease. And yet we know this is only part of the summer story. These warm days also bring mosquitoes and ticks, hail, flooding, tornadoes. Thoughts and hearts can be filled with grief, or anger or even some bitterness. And I know that we are not always happy, and I know we are not always sad. And yes, we all know the seasons come and go, that summer is not always 72 and pleasant, and winter is not always 30 below and raw. We know this. And yet, when we are in the midst of big, hard feels or loss, it can be so easy to lose our way, to not remember the other side, and not find renewal or even rest. We can get stuck, fixed, sunk into the muck of tough, stinky stuff. The Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh offers a perspective that I think helps. In the book No Mud, No Lotus, he writes, "Both suffering and happiness are of an organic matter, which means they are both transitory. They are always changing. The flower, when it wilts, becomes the compost. The compost can help grow a flower again. Happiness is also organic and impermanent by nature. It can become suffering, and suffering can become happiness again." When we remember that everything is always changing, when we can imagine the cycles of life and nature, of feelings and moods, we can create space to wonder and hold the possibilities of what can be within the muck. Because it's that mud is part of all of us. It's inherent within us and around us. It is fertilizer and history and the ground of our becoming. It is our connection to earth, our connection to self, and it's our connection to one another. And so the question that I bring before us is, how can we cultivate this in our lives? Thich Nhat Hanh taught that when waking up in the morning, the first thing to do is to breathe and to become aware that you have 24 brand new hours to live. This is a gift of life. It's a gift of our state of impermanence. Now, waking up each day like this is a big aspiration for me, maybe for you as well, a really, really, really big aspiration. But sometimes, every once in a while, I remind myself of this gift by walking through my gardens first thing while I'm still bleary-eyed. I'm wearing my pajamas, I slip on a hoodie and a grubby pair of lime green Crocs, and I wander through the garden beds. This isn't a time for gardening. I am simply noticing, using my eyes and nose and the tips of my fingers as they brush gently against the plants. And I get pretty giddy when I see a brand new flower or some plant that somehow survived the bunny rabbits or diseases or pests. Each year I put up trellises for my tomatoes, and I'm thrilled at how they climb. Every time I go out there, I swear they've gone up another 6 inches. These magnificent red and yellow and purple fruits hang thick amongst the foliage. I love the surprises. I am grateful for what is alive and thriving. My little ecosystem teaches me about the things I can control and the many, many, many things that I can't. And in my best moments, I can bring this feeling to mind when I am mired in thoughts, emotions, or patterns that feel unmovable. What helps you be like the ground? What fills you with that visceral sense of no mud, no lotus? These are the questions of our life, They are what bring us back over and over again to the gift of impermanence, of change, and of connection. And it starts by pausing, by breathing, and by noticing. What we're going to do in just a few moments, and what I'm going to invite you to do, is to participate in a small, simple ritual. It is somewhat akin to the fire communion ritual that you do here at UUC each year. But I feel the context and the means of doing these rituals can reveal different perspectives and insights. And so instead of fire, we're going to be using the literal act of composting to see what might be invited in for our sense of renewal. Hopefully everybody got a piece of newspaper and you have some sort of writing utensil, a crayon, a marker, a pen, a pencil. It literally does not even matter if it works. There's greeters that will be looking around, so if you don't have that piece of newsprint, raise your hand and someone will bring it to you. And for those of you online, go grab a piece of junk mail, a piece of newspaper or random piece of paper, and something to write with. Go on. Go on, we'll wait. Okay. Come on back when you're done. Before we begin, let's settle into the possibilities of this ritual with the opening lines from Wendell Berry's poem, A Purification. At the start of spring, I open a trench in the ground. I put in it the winter's accumulation of paper, pages I do not want to read again, useless words, fragments, errors. And I put into it the contents of the outhouse, light of the sun, growth of the ground, finished with one of their journeys. To the sky, to the wind then, and to the faithful trees, I confess. So right now, in this moment, write or draw whatever you may be holding on to, whatever burden you may be carrying, whatever weed or bruised spot or expired item you are ready to rid of and transform. Or perhaps you have a dream or idea or wish you'd like to give time and space for it to heat up and see what may come forth. Don't think too hard. Put down whatever most readily comes forward. And when you're done, come forward and drop it into this compost pile. Or wave and we'll come and get the piece of paper for you. And for those of you online, go drop that piece of paper into your own recycling or compost bin. It's important to complete this circle. So write, draw, pause, and then release. And Kendra's going to play some music while we're doing this. Let's bring this ritual to a close. With these additional organic materials, these browns and greens mixed together, we're going to bring our pile into balance, readying it to return to the earth. This is going into my compost bin back home, a little bit of UUC coming to my garden in St. Paul. Remember, to make a good compost, you've got to be willing to crack open, willing to break it down, willing to wait, willing to surrender, willing to burn from within, willing to have faith and emerge again. May it be so.